will be our last Techie Talk of August 2023 with State Representative Jackie Chan of Quincy. Hard to believe, Jackie.
Oh, the unofficial end of summer is creeping on us fast. And I'd like to wish everybody a happy Labor Day weekend and all my friends in the labor unions to have a wonderful Labor Day as well. And of course, you all know I'm a SAG-AFTRA member, and we continue to be on strike. And I hope that the negotiations are continuing well in California. But same time, very thankful of our brothers and sisters in labor are supporting our cause.
Yeah, we actually, since you brought that up, is it having an impact? I know the film industry is pretty big in Massachusetts.
It is actually having an impact. I don't think it'll be felt for a little while, but it's going to be more felt as we go into the winter months. A lot of television and filming actually pauses deep winter areas unless you need to do a winter scene. Most people will slow down or not do as many outdoor scenes during the winter period. But as I said during the pandemic, we didn't realize exactly how much impact the film industry had until we had no tourists. And graduation season wasn't normal because people didn't come out for in-person graduation. And the hotel industry and hospitality was basically held up by the film industry, which was the fastest one to get back online once the various states lifted their COVID restrictions on businesses. They had money already banked for these films. So it isn't like, they had a financing problem. It's just they need to get to work quickly. So, for those who may remember during, COVID, I had made a part of my floor speech and also with you, Joe, and various podcasts, how, the industry had reduced the hotel hospitality industry had well below 30% census and continually dropping and, near zero during COVID. But because of the film industry already being here and kind of trapped with the rest of us, so to speak, indoors, they were trapped in hotel rooms and continuing to pay. And, they basically made up almost all of the hotel stays during the second half of 2020 in particular, which kept their census up 30% and higher in many hotels. And like, for example, Dexter's last season, I'm now dating myself by saying Spencer, but Dexter's last season, or the most recent season, was filmed in the Berkshires. And, there were a huge economic impact, for their presence there in the towns they were in. So, yeah, we're going to feel it. Hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact as a result of the writers and actors strike. California is obviously going to take the biggest brunt of it all, as well as places like New York State and Georgia, other states that are huge film television states. So, this impacts a lot because when you say writer's strike, people forget those includes writers for late night shows.
And game shows too, things you don't even think of.
Yes, even though they're perceived as live shows, they're really scripted live shows. So you're right, game shows, late night shows, Saturday Night Live is probably one of the most well-known ones regarding a scripted live show. So yeah, it has massive impact on our fall entertainment, and the streaming services are right now, rapidly pushing out all their prior stuff that's already been filmed as quickly as possible. And also certain movies are going to have suspension on. Dune 2, for those who are Dune fans, was supposed to come out this November. They're going to suspend it into the spring because they can't do a tour. The actors will not do a promotion, or the writers do promotion on a movie while they're on strike. And that has a huge impact on ticket sales, being able to promote a film, because you want to create that buzz for people to come watch it. And then you also have the negative impact on theaters, which is still having a hard time, not just because of the COVID impact of streaming services, but also the lack of content. People forget that if you don't have stuff in a theater to watch, why would you want to watch it? And, I was joking about how many times you could watch Gone in the Wind during the COVID period in 2020, but it's actually true. I mean, there's only two films that crossed $1 billion this year, and it's Mario Brothers and Barbie. Interesting enough, two toy license or video game license franchise actually crossed the $1 billion mark. Mission Impossible did very poorly, much to my shock, by the way. I think Tom Cruise is a seller, but apparently Top Gun Maverick was the last big hurrah for now. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny did not do well. Another big budget film, in this case by Disney. So a lot of these blockbuster films have not done great. I mean, Michael Bay's Transformers Again, not a huge turnout this year for that film. Another one that people like this summer, kind of like escapism films. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, The Flash did okay. Another superhero movie, again, escapism film. But Oppenheimer is doing pretty good actually for a film that's 3 hours and 20 plus minutes and quite heavy at one point. And it's on my watch list, but it's 3 hours and 20 minutes. But that's a problem for movie theaters because you can only have so many showings of that film a day, as opposed to a 2 hour and a half film, or even a 1 hour and 30-minute film. You can run more screens and run more showings per day. So a film that's popular like Oppenheimer is actually tough with theaters as well because they can't show it as often.
Right. Yeah. Are you hearing anything at all about movement in the contract talks?
No, I got my latest emails. They still have some exemptions for independent films. One of the other areas that is heavily impacted by the strike is small indie films. We're talking about films less than $250,000, $500,000. We're talking tiny films. Some as small as under $100,000, but they use union actors in some of these movies, and these actors will take below pay a bit because they like the project so much. But you have to get a waiver for things like that, and you have to get a special contractual waiver with the union to continue to use actors. And why is this important? Because the film festival seasons can be starting up soon internationally, and if your independent film isn't done and it qualifies for an independent film festival, that's a launch point for some of these films to make a couple of dollars back. And if they get really lucky, they go into the mainstream theaters if they get picked up by a distributor. So independent films are kind of on the precipice right now nationally because the deadlines are coming up on the festivals this wintertime. And the guys got to make a bit of money back. I mean, that's part of it as well. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And again, that's another thing, promotion as well. If you have a completed indie film, you have actors who want to promote their indies.
Yeah, that's a good point. The actors, it's two separate strikes, really. It's the writers and the actors.
Yeah, it's been, I think, close to 40 years since both unions were strike together. This is really big deal because now you really have ground to a halt. Basically, the entire industry, right? You don't have writers and actors. You got nothing. And that leaves your reality TV shows. So, somebody may like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. I mean, those are going to continue. But, scripted entertainment or scripted live entertainment is, not on the table.
Fortunately, it does not impact local access cable television here in Quincy.
Well, I mean, this is your chance for a breakout moment, Joe.
Yeah, that chance is long past. That's for sure. Although I prefer this over that any day.
It's been a long time I've been on a set acting, I will have to say. I do miss it. I mean, I'm not claiming to be an Oscar-winning actor by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like it. I mean, I miss doing some acting if there's a chance to do some modeling back when I was much younger and more handsome. Or perhaps I was more handsome. I don't know anymore. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed meeting people, talking about where they came from in their lives. I know it's a lot of hurry up and wait. Those who've done this before, you just kind of sit there waiting for something to happen. It's a good chance to catch up on work, believe it or not, while you're waiting for something to happen. But best fun was actually just talking to folks, where they come from, how they got into this business, what they're involved and what their aspirations will be. And everyone actually has a different story. And until you actually see it done in person, I mean, most people realize exactly how intricate making movies, TVs, commercials are, and just a raw number of people that you don't see in front of a camera to make it happen.
That's exactly right. Yeah, even at our small scale here, local access, there's a lot of more behind the scenes than in front of the camera, in order to make things go. And for your part, it's a different outlet. It's a creative outlet, I'm sure, as opposed to the legislative name tag that you wear for most of the day.
Well, it's a lot of fun. I mean, as you all know, I'm an attorney, I'm an actor, I'm a politician. So I mean, the triple threat of things people hate.
Hey, you're in a different office today.
Yes, I'm in Chairman Paracella's office today. I am next door to my own office. This is Thank you to Chairman Paracella and his staff for allowing me to film my podcast from here at the State House. He's the Chairman of Economic Development and Emerging Technologies. My office is getting painted. Getting an office painted here is like finding a unicorn. Those who have visited the State House knows this is a very old building and it's kind of a hodgepodge. My carpet has black duct tape holding down parts of it. This ain't Congress, people. I wish it was. You actually, on a quick side note, if you go to the Edward Kennedy, Ted Kennedy, what is it? Education Institute. I can't remember the name of it, but it's at UMass by JFK Center. They have the replica of the U.S. Senate. They also have a replica of Ted Kennedy's office.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's incredible, and we don't. It's not a mat. It actually is quite a small office once you see the replica. I was very surprised how little space it had. But they have better paint and wallpaper and definitely better carpet. So my office being painted pewter. Some who visit me know I have a basement office, a retaining wall behind me. The lighting is challenging. We've done a few podcasts for my other space. Opportunity came up to get painted. So all my stuff is not in office, it's sitting in the outside space. And my staff has decided that since we have the office repainted, it'd be a good idea to probably do another furniture rearrange. We haven't really done a lot since 2017. And those who, may or may not know, I mean, I was a midterm chairman. So, I got an office in March 2017 up in transportation. We were preparing to unpack. We were unpacking and moving from a previous office in room 26. And then I became a chairman in July, and we had only halfway unpacked. This is a gig where things will happen that, you only get up to the essentials and worry about the other stuff when it gets slower, like decorations and, putting up pictures I do at the end. But we've actually never truly finished unpacking from 2017. We just kind of like hodgepodged it along. So I suspect the staff's kind of like, well, we have an opportunity to actually make your office look more professional, or just change it around to make it a little bit different.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll look forward to that, seeing that next time you're in your office for our next podcast.
What was actually pretty funny was that during COVID 2020, there was actually spotless. It was the cleanest I've ever seen the State House, to be honest with you, because there was nobody here. So there was no mud, there was no tracking of dirt. It was not a lot of dust. Sadly, there's almost no ventilation here, which is one of our big fears regarding airborne diseases. There's nothing to disperse it. So, I have a bunch of fans in office blowing relatively constantly, because not just because the temperature can fluctuate quickly, but also trying to keep particles dispersing. I've been running this half and half hybrid staffing here, and I've heard stories of other offices, have 100% COVID impact and basically close the office. So for better or for worse, folks, I've not had an office closure because we've not had all the staff being infected simultaneously through 21 and 22, and probably in this new wave of whatever COVID wave we're facing now in 23. And it may sound odd to some folks, but I can't lose 5 staffers at once. And God forbid they're really, really sick, which actually I won't get people's medical issues, but I mean, some folks were kind of down for the count for 5 days. Yeah. I mean, it was really foggy brain and just congestion and coughing, and they're much younger than I am, so they have better endurance. But yeah, you shut down 5 people in my situation. That's everybody, and we got into a period of paralysis. At least when we have this kind of split up staff situation to prevent full infection, at least everyone can back everybody up on different work. And obviously I'm around too, so I'm also the ultimate backup in work as well. It's not like I forgot how to staff. I was staffed a long time. It's not like I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, no, it might slow you down a little bit, but at least you'll be able to still function.
Yeah, that was kind of crucial when we were discussing among ourselves about this issue. And as we head into this fall season, here, most of my hearings are done. We did it in the first half of the year, but I mean, we do still have some more hearings. There'll be a lot more meetings, and our research continues that we started in the end of July into August and September. So, you got to be clear-headed going to the Christmas time. We have a really short window of sessions from Labor Day to essentially the third week of November. So basically, I think the third Friday is when we shut down for a winter recess. The committee still works through the holiday period, but if I want to get stuff moving in terms of trying to get bills out of various other committees, as well as trying to get out of the House and move it to the Senate, I have this little period of time, and I can never emphasize again the importance of good staff and people who want to put the hours and times in for frankly not too much money.
Right. Yeah. The state transportation secretary resigned, Jackie.
Yeah, I think like not quite 6 months in the job.
Something like that. Yeah.
9 months in the job or something like that. Yeah, it's not unusual to see rotation of administration secretaries and commissioners and undersecretaries. Some people find out, they get there, they don't like the job. Well, don't stick around. They don't like the job, right? Other people move on to better opportunities relatively quickly. They already had other irons in the fire, so to speak, and move on. In this instance, I don't have a story to tell you. I don't know exactly what's going on beyond the media outlets. It seems to be very amicable. Transition will be pretty good. But again, this is a very important position for the Commonwealth, particularly with the advent of issues at MBTA, the myriad of road and construction projects still to get done. Obviously we had some massive impact of flooding up in the western part of the state, which includes flooding on a lot of roads.
And, the way the weather's been going, there may be more of that too. So there needs to be somebody at the helm to oversee that.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And that's kind of part of the, challenge here that the secretariat is dealing with, but, also the governor as well. And you need your secretaries in place, through this part of the beginning cycle to get your agenda down and set up a timeline of how things will get done. So again, not unusual, little quicker than I expected. But, generally you get 3 as of a secretariat. That's pretty good. These folks aren't here for a pension. A lot of folks have private sector jobs. They're very marketable after being a secretariat up here in the private sector or whatever they pursue.
Yeah.
A little surprising, not lasting a full year. But I'm sure that the governor is able to figure out, what's the next best step.
Yeah, the undersecretary is now in the acting role, and like you say, the governor will address that when needed. Speaking of transportation, not in your district, I know, but here in Quincy, there was a virtual public hearing just last night by the State Department of Transportation, the intersection of Willard Street, Raschuti Drive. It's at the 25% design phase now. So I was just curious about if you knew anything about the funding for that.
Well, I was on the call, so
Okay.
I didn't raise my hand. I didn't have a question, but I'm aware Senator Keenan was there, Representative Ayers, Councilor Jim Devine was on the call, Councilor Mahoney. So I mean, those are the person I did hear on the call. I did have it on my phone on last night. It's about $5.
Okay.
It is largely 80% funded by the federal government, as considered an emergency highway assistance safety issue. 20%, state has to come up with that money. The city did come up with a planning, the design and engineering components for $250,000 based on mitigation money.
Yep.
So, this is actually pretty far ahead. The last time we looked at this location was 2019. At the time, we hadn't quite risen to the level of traffic danger, which I think everybody's surprised by if you ever driven down there. They did another study again a couple of years later. Showed that it did rise to the level of a danger situation, which allowed to access federal funds. 25% is very early design phase. There's no clear timetable or construction. It is going to be a traffic light situation. A rotary is not going to work. Obviously, the current configuration is not safe at all. Bruce Ayers and John Keenan and myself, and Speaker were able to get about $40,000 for what we call a temporary traffic light.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mobile situation, but used during the day.
Okay.
But again, that requires a study before you implement that kind of project. You can't just dump it there. So, this involves city traffic engineer and, working with the state on trying to figure out what the safety pattern is, what the light sequence is. This could be a good way to get a test case going, I think, before actual construction as well, where you have a temporary lighting system. Gives you a chance to kind of get a better real world view and real world attempt to see how the lighting system and what signalizations make sense. But again, they can't just drop it there. They need to actually do a study and figure out, what will work or hope will work, and then see what happens and make adjustments. But Rashudi and Willard, coming off the expressway, coming off of Willard, going off of Rashudi is a nightmare. And I think everybody who's ever been in that part of the city knows it. So it's great to hear that the city and state are working on this project, and great work by the delegation on getting some funding on a temporary situation, which can provide some good information for a permanent solution.
Yeah, you don't know unless you try. But that's interesting. That, as you know, that off ramp was built solely for the big dig, just to transport the dirt up to the dump.
Yeah, so a little bit of ancient history. The Granite Links Golf Course is built on big dig money. So the O'Connells, and the guys know that Walter Hannon Sr. Was very involved in that project, and they would basically be paid per truckload of material from the big dig that be dumped into Quarry Hills, and then money was used to help finance the Quarry Hills Golf Course project, and pay for Rashudi Drive. The intention was never really to convert that into a permanent off ramp until people really started using it and realized that people liked it. Now it's obviously a traffic nightmare because a lot of people like it.
Right. Yeah.
Those
will let you get off the expressway before the split, which is, very attractive.
Well, those of us old enough, often would actually come off 128 to Route 3 as opposed to going to McGrath Highway Lake Jab. Now, I remember my dad would have to crisscross traffic, onto 93 North Expressway, and then he had to swing right quick to get to Furnace Brook Parkway, so we can, take Furnace Brook back to home in Walston. Yeah. So, a lot of these traffic patterns you have today, if you're old enough, you remember they weren't there. And the Rashudi Drive wasn't there, and that Willard Street on-ramp wasn't there. And I was reminded by a friend, somewhere in there was a Howard Johnson, which I swear I remember this Howard Johnson. I just can't remember exactly where it was.
Yes, no, he's right. There was one there. I don't remember exactly where either, but it was right around there.
I must have eaten there once as a child at some point. My father would have definitely brought us to it at one point. But for the love of Pete, I can't remember where exactly it was.
I'm sure there's a picture we can find somewhere. Yeah.
I'm sure someone will tell us somewhere else. I'm sure you can have a guest that's more memory vivid about that Howard Johnson. But yeah, I mean, there was these things on the expressway that people didn't realize were there today. Today, they didn't realize they were there then.
That's right.
But it's again, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough.
So I'm curious, when they do finish the project, like 5 years down the road or longer, would the state own it, or would the city own it, or is it a combination?
City.
Oh, the city. Okay.
Yeah, the state's jurisdiction ends at the on-ramp, or actually is the on-ramp. Once the on-ramp actually connects to the Rashudi Drive area, or probably 100 feet before it, that becomes city roads. But obviously the city and the state will have to cooperate together regardless of the safety traffic issues. But regarding long-term maintenance, it would be a city component of that. As we know, I mean, plowing and things like that, the city and the state kind of works out among themselves.
Right. Yep.
Because it seems kind of silly that the state, does the on-ramp and nothing else. I mean,
right.
They'll always work it out somehow.
Yeah, there's the technical, then the practical. If there's a plow right there and there's not one from the state available, obviously the city's going to take care of it just for safety reasons.
Yeah, and Route 28, is
same thing.
Road 28. So you got a little gap of state road. It isn't like the plow's going to stop, leave that big empty space for the city, that little space for the city, and then somehow make its way to 28 from there, right?
Right. Yeah. All these little nuances that folks don't realize. Yeah.
People, again, the sausage making, like we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. I mean, people want the TV shows, but no one really thinks about how a TV show is made or movie is made, right? We do lawmaking here, but no one cares about the processes. They only care about the results, whether it be positive or negative results. They care about results. And same thing in legal work. People don't care about the nuances of how to get, their filings done or their lawsuits addressed. They just care about getting to the end product.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Shows like this, gives us a chance to give you a little bit of insight behind the scenes. I do find it very important that, I try to give some basic background how things are done, even on constituent services, talking to folks. And honestly, some people listen, yes, some people don't care. I mean,
Mhm.
this is life, folks. I mean, it's no different from any job in the world. Nobody cares exactly how you got your bananas. You just want your bananas, right?
It's so true. We want self gratification. We want it instantly.
Yep, and hang on.
Oh, your motion light
Yep,
just
hold on, folks. I got
turned
to get the
yourself.
motion going.
Now we'll switch to the radio version of Tacky Talk.
Yeah, those of you on the podcast version will not see me get up to wave my arms around to get the energy efficiency motion sensor to turn the lights back on.
So it must be on like a 30-minute timer.
Yeah, again, this is a way of saving money, right? Reducing carbon footprint, right? Is to have ways to not use lighting. You don't need to use it. We do have fluorescent lighting here and more different energy efficient light bulbs all through the State House. And as you can just tell, I mean, the fact that if I don't move, then the lighting goes off. So the days of remember signs like, last one out, turn off the light switches.
Right. No need to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, I'm really starting to date myself here too. It's last one out, flip the switch.
As you're well aware, the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington just took place not too long ago.
Yeah, I saw that in the news, and those, I Have a Dream of Speech still resonates today. The last few years have been really tough. I don't have to rehash history for everybody. I think you all know. And it shows that, the dream of 60 years ago is a dream that we continue to struggle to achieve. And there are people out there who don't believe that there's a problem, or don't want to address as a problem, or don't want to see there's a problem. And those who live trying to struggle for the dream, sees what the inequities really are. But the question always the same is, how do we get there? And until people say, collectively that the dream needs to become real, well, the struggle will continue.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation recently with the city's new DEI liaison, Damian Uttar, and he brought up an interesting point about accessibility to city services. And the fact that, they may all be accessible to folks, but some folks might not know how to use them. So he's, kind of coming at it from a point of, okay, we have all these services and people can access them, but do they know, and do they know how?
Yeah, they were going back to my much, much younger days when during the streets administration. I had some words in the Patriot Ledger that got me in trouble regarding accessing city services. This is not a new struggle as a kind of chuckle a bit, because it's a struggle that's been going on in government services with folks that are people of color, but also people who speak English as a first language.
Right.
As I've said before, our old friend Eugene Welch, who passed away, that ran South Cove Community Health Center, says language access is the last form of discrimination. And he's right. And every immigrant, doesn't matter what part of the world you're from, doesn't speak English as first language or doesn't speak English well, struggled not with just government, but general population, and trying to make a way of life. We're trying to learn language skills on the fly. There was no government services, when my parents came. Thankfully, the Hong Kong immigrants, but still, English was not their first language,
Yep.
even though it was taught in schools. And there was no government assistance, back in the 60s to help people acclimate quickly regarding language skills that we have today. Knowledge of government is a universal issue that all of us face. It's, what's the difference between city and state? Why do we have county government? What is the federal government's jurisdictions? And, all these components that, I can talk legalese to you, but it's really about division of services, right? I get emails from folks that are having immigration issues. This is the state level. I have really nothing to say about immigration issues. So, we provide a bridge to a federal delegation, a member's office, to help them out from there. We do the whole, handoff. We contact someone, so who you can talk to if you call us, and then we do the handoff, so to speak. So you're not just blindly calling an office. I do like to try to make sure that a constituent has the ability to find another human in a congressional office to help them out. So, and also, why do we pay taxes for this, taxes for that, and where it goes, right? And understanding the size of the federal, state, and municipal budgets. Why it's important to us to vote in municipal elections, and also, why do you run for office, right? I mean, why are you running for office? What is your purpose? Why you're there? Is it strictly ideological? Is it more people oriented? I tend to be more people oriented. They, try to be more helpful, an opportunity to be more helpful. And and how do you access government? How do you feel that you've been heard, and how do you get good customer service where people will, for lack of concept, will welcome you with a smile, so to speak, right? Basic customer service. And I think everybody is called has experienced government service, including myself as an elected, where you don't receive service with a smile.
Yeah. I think probably these past few years, more than any, more and more people have had to have contact with their local and state government because of the pandemic and the services that they needed to access than they ever did in their lives, probably.
As I like to say, most people call me is one time, and one time only. It's people
Right.
who first experience, for example, trying to kill unemployment. Generally happens during a good economic period for extended time, generally 7 to 10 years, and then find themselves unemployed for the first time in an economic downturn. COVID was special, right? We almost hit 20% unemployment nationally. As I say, 20,000 applicants plus, within a 1 week period at the state level. My office phone and email was overwhelmed, just overwhelmed during that first 2 or 3 weeks when literally, a fifth of the workforce got laid off.
Yep.
And it had 50 customer service people working unemployment.
Yeah. Which, in a normal time would be adequate, but it was completely inadequate for that time.
Yeah. And then we found ourselves having to gear up well past 2,000 employees in a very short period of time. And, my colleagues and myself, ran into language access issues where, for the first time we're overwhelmed, and as opposed to be able to get some one-on-one assistance on language access, now we're into, thousands and thousands of people do not have English as a first language. And, rapidly trying to find people with the appropriate language skills to help them out, and also produce Zoom webinars, for lack of a better term, to try to help people understand the process. And this was all done on the fly. There was no textbook, there was no rules, there was nothing. And again, this is sausage making, right? People don't care about how we got there. They just care of the results they're able to get. And when you're dealing with people with a lot of fear, because the first time that, obviously a lot of things were going on in 2020, fear becomes anger pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you get scared, and then when you have no control, then you get upset. Yeah.
Yeah. And electeds tend to get, their head kicked in over it. And I've had my kicked in a lot over my lifetime. And I'm very understanding, as you guys probably may have figured out. You do enough constituent service over enough decades, you're very understanding what's going on with people. And I don't get upset about this stuff. I really don't. Because if you understand what's going on, there's no fear and there's no anger. It's when you don't know what's going on is where fear takes hold and anger comes right after.
Yeah. So have policies put in place to, deal with that if it ever does happen again?
Well, yes, kind of. I mean, I think no matter what happens, can we fly the seat of our pants? Lord forbid we have an actual disaster. But I mean, the mechanisms are better in place as the conversation continues about knowing what to do next. But trying to gear up 2,000 employees on a fly is just unreasonable, right? And certain things kind of worked well and some didn't. I mean, remember the huge contact tracing thing Baker tried and quite frankly fizzled after about a month? Well, you didn't try, you wouldn't know.
Right.
It's different from trying to track Ebola in Madagascar versus, trying to track COVID in Massachusetts. It's like two different things. It doesn't always translate well from one to the other. But, hopefully, the states, working with the CDC again, like they did with avian flu, will create, again, new mechanisms and protocols in place for future, hopefully not near future, pandemic situations. But also remember, folks, I mean, post 9/11, this is a state that's terrorist ready. I mean, it's only been what, about a dozen years now since the Boston bombing. I mean,
2013, so 10 years.
yeah, 10 years. This is the 10th year of the Boston bombing. That's right. 10 years of Boston bombing. So that wasn't that long ago. And, even then, there was protocols in place for anti-terrorism unit. but they'll still fly by the seat of your pants. Weren't really clear in the first hour who you're looking for. There was mistaken identity, which is
That's right.
regrettable. Again, this is why the media has now slowed down the reporting of identities. Because if you're chasing the wrong person, the bad guy gets away. Duh, right? Um, that so I mean, even the media has changed exactly identities of release to get confirmation for law enforcement before they actually do something on their own. It's dangerous. You don't want to chase the wrong person. The real bad guy disappears, right? So, but even then, there was some flying the seat of pants. And we shut down Boston. We shut down like a lot of things around Boston. I mean, yeah, there was a terrorist protocol, but the first hour, no one knew what they're looking for, and triage was set up right away. Um, so you can prepare for the best, but at some point you have to wing a little bit of it.
Yeah. Let's hope we don't have to do it again real soon. That's for sure.
I personally would like to not have a second experience.
Correct. Yeah. We should talk a little bit about the economy as we always do. It's weird still.
Weird still, right? I mean, unemployment openings has dropped. So for first time in almost like a year and a half, there are slowdown in job availabilities, but unemployment still remains remarkably low. I think unemployment numbers come out this Friday.
As they
So
do. Yeah.
it'll give an idea of what it may look like. Um, the GDP numbers look like it's still going to be very strong going into the fall, but consumer spending will trickle. I mean, people had well past $1 trillion in savings account monies at the beginning of the year. It's come down to under $200 million in total savings, which means that people are either intentionally or forced to spend down their savings accounts. Even though wages and inflation are now syncing up better, at some point wages are going to stop growing. And I talked about this before, where you want inflation to get below wages to start the equalization process. And it looks like we're heading that direction, but we don't know. Fuel prices have gone up. Those of you may have seen maybe almost 30 cents plus in the last 30 or so days. Gas prices have gone up. There's still this winter unknowns. Is going to be a very cold winter, a very warm winter on a global level, not just locally, because fuel and energy prices is a global issue. When one part of the world has unusual weather events, it actually will affect the economy in another part of the world.
So last time we talked, the Fed had yet to meet, but they did meet in Wyoming and didn't really indicate one way or the other what they were going to do with interest rates.
Yeah, Jerome Powell picked his words very carefully. Obviously, they write this stuff beforehand. They're very aware that anything he says may have impacts on markets and interest rates and loans and people buying homes and retailers getting ready for whatever we're going to do next. I mean, it's a real ripple effect on what he says, and he continues to maintain a very vague but straightforward line where we're data dependent, nothing's off the table, but it doesn't mean we're going to do anything. But just be aware.
It's kind of like interviewing Bill Belichick. He says a lot, but he doesn't say anything.
There's a lot of truth to that. The problem that the feds have and all of us have, doesn't matter what level of government work or researchers, it doesn't matter who you are. Everything's going to be a lagging indicator. You only know as much as the data has been collected over the last 30 days. It takes a couple of weeks for the information to be synthesized to the digestible form from all these data sets, and you can make a determination. Now, what's happened today from 30 days ago or 3 months ago or 1 year ago is very different. And but I can't tell you what's going on right now, right? We could tell you what happened 30 years ago or 3 months ago, 1 year ago, because those data sets have been set. And as I like to remind folks, past results does not indicate future return. This is the rule of life we should all pay attention to. As I like to say, that those little thing, the little number thing you see on roulette tables is not a prediction of the future roulette wheel.
No, read the fine print for sure. Yeah.
The fine print. Same thing goes with everything else in life. Past indication is not a guarantee of future return. It becomes a guidepost of future return, but necessarily a guarantee of what outcomes will be. So we talk about institutional knowledge. I have a lot of that. I can guesstimate within a zone of possibilities, but until the actual thing happens, you don't know if you're right or wrong. All you're doing is
Mhm.
providing insight the best you can on a possible outcome.
Can we talk a little bit about presidential politics? Since last we talked, also there is now a indictment in the former Republican president.
Yeah, history is being made in most unfortunate negative ways. This would be interesting how the historians write this 20 years from now. I mean, it's interesting. Republican primary is becoming this real fascinating study in politics. Those of us who are politics nerds find this like really interesting. It was interesting 4 years ago. It was interesting 8 years ago and 16 years ago. But this one is by far the most fascinating primary. And primaries are tricky because you have it a real campaign question, right? So Massachusetts, for example, is an open primary state. You can be unenrolled, non-party affiliated, take a Democrat or Republican ballot. You only can take one and vote in that primary. You can switch parties, for example, or become unenrolled from Democrat or Republican and take another ballot. You can switch back your party affiliation later on. Other states are closed primaries, meaning that you can only vote in a primary if your party affiliation is there, meaning that you can't be unenrolled or non-party affiliated and then proceed to take a Democrat or Republican. You must register in one of those parties to participate. Why is that important? Well, the pool of voters change.
Right.
Who you're trying to appeal to. So, little campaign insight on Democrat Republican politics. You start looking at the data regarding people's voting patterns. Now, we don't know who you vote for, but we do know your registration, and we can track your registration change around over the course of as long as we have data on it, and try to figure out whether or not you're a voter in a presidential primary and what are the odds. Again, can't predict what are the odds that you may take a Democrat Republican ballot and whether or not the campaign tries to appeal for your vote based on that math.
Right. And they've gotten very good at it.
Yeah, and of course, Democrats, Republicans don't always vote in the primary either for whatever reason.
Yep.
So, that's the data's out there. And again, money's not forever, even in elected politics, and you got to spend your resources wisely. So you have an open primary like in Massachusetts, those data sets regarding unenrolled voters or voters that keep swapping parties back and forth regularly, become an interesting data set. If you're in a state where it's a closed primary, you don't care about unenrolled voters. And you may not even care about people swapping parties regularly. You may want to just concentrate on very specific demographic voters, and then you do the surveys and you do all those focus groups and you do all this stuff to find out what the demographic represents. Now, the trouble that's occurred is that primary participation is way down. And as a result, the pool of voters keeps shrinking, which means your messaging keeps shrinking to that smaller pool of voters, which is why people always like, well, how come they don't speak to a wider audience? Because you're not voting as part of that wider audience.
Right.
The message will be targeted towards that smaller pool of voters. And, in the last, 4 years, the voter registration has gone down regarding party affiliations, especially the Republican Party. And as a result, those unenrolled voters in closed primary states no longer have an impact regarding how they message in those states.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a closed primary state and you have a very smaller pool of Republican voters because those people change registration to be unenrolled or to go Democrat or wherever to go, that changes how a Republican primary messages. So what you see in the messaging today was probably not the same messaging 10 years ago, which was not the same messaging for 20 years ago. And this is kind of the challenge of primary politics. And then there's the other question we kind of briefly touched upon before we came on the show here, is qualifications to run for president.
Right.
And, every state has a different qualification because the states determine the qualifications to running for office in said state. So the requirements in Massachusetts are not the same as in Florida or Texas or California or Washington State or Iowa, North Dakota, all different. So running a national campaign is pretty complicated because you need people in every state, in the case of a primary, to include those territories like Guam matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps if you're in a tight situation because they get to send delegates to the convention. So, you got to know the rules of the primary process, whether it be caucus, general elections. You have to understand the rules of a final election. You have to understand how many signatures you need to get. You also have to understand whether or not you have a criminal background on whether or not you can qualify for office. Generally, a conviction, not an indictment or an arrest. You have to have a conviction. And whether that impacts your ability to run in those states. Massachusetts, you lose your right to vote if you're a convicted felon. However, it doesn't necessarily prohibit your ability to run for office.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I remember one time somebody ran for prison against Steve Lynch when he was a state senator.
Is that right? So I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was a year when Steve Lynch ran in the 9/11 year primary, which is
Oh,
actually a great conversation to have with a congressman about how he pulled off that four-way Democrat plan, which is quite incredible. But
okay.
but before that, when he ran in the special election rate for Billy Bowser's seat, he probably recall it better than I am. I might be getting this wrong, but when Senate President Bozier left, becoming U.S. president triggered a special election. That's how Steve Lynch came to the Senate, state Senate. And I remember correctly, I think that special election rate actually had somebody running from prison
Huh,
against him in that election as a Republican. If I remember,
interesting.
but again, you have to check with the congressman and go back in the Wayback Machine to see if he's willing to tell a story from ancient times.
No, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he remembers clearly.
Yeah, I think you'll remember more clear than I do. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, it's every state is different. Every state is quirky, and if there's a conviction of the president or the former president, more accurately, during the election process, does that bump them off balance?
Stay tuned for that. Sure. Anything going on in the district, Tacky, we should talk about?
No, it's been really quiet. I mean, obviously, August Moon has come and gone, and Labor Day is rolling around. But a lot of Labor Day events tend to be at the Park Plaza Hotel as they have their Labor Day rally. And I understand, there's some local things in Marymount neighborhood, and there's an art festival going on.
Mhm.
And there, but I expect it to be very quiet going into this weekend. 9/11 is coming around. The fire station headquarters, Jimmy, would do a ceremony just remembering folks that passed from that tragic event. And then moving into September, there'll be more and more fundraising events going off. I did get my invitation from the Dove um, annual event, domestic violence ended.
Mhm.
So that fundraiser is coming up, and I'm sure Interfaith Social Services and Queens Community Action Program is probably going to do a fundraising drive this fall. So I mean, it's going to pick up again, and I think what's going to happen again, like we saw last year, is that I think some of the big events will occur in the month of October. It'll be very busy for many of us, and then it'll probably be quiet again to the spring, as I think people will not try to create large gatherings in the near term, again, because there will be a COVID spike. The numbers already showing it's coming.
Yeah, we're expecting guidance soon on the most recent vaccination, so we'll see what CDC says about that.
Yeah, the BXX is the latest variant of vaccines to be ready to go. I will be getting vaccinated. My mom, as you guys already aware, has lung cancer and is respiratory challenged. So the vaccination is very important to her as well as myself. So we're definitely vaccinated when that comes up. If I hit the age, I can get the shingles virus vaccine, I think. And RSV virus vaccination is coming up. Opportunity maybe coming up very quickly for folks, particularly senior population. RSP. Is because I'm not enunciating correctly.
Yeah, it's RSV.
RSV is very deadly for senior population.
Yeah.
That vaccine hopefully be ready this fall as well.
Yep.
And flu.
Yeah. So yeah, that.
So yes, I am going to get vaccinated. It's in my best interest, but also the interest of keeping my mom safe.
I know you're pressed for time today, so I'll ask you to get up your information so folks can get a hold of you.
Sure. Tacky.chan, TACKY.CHAN at mhouse.gov. Email. My email box is gratefully not crazy anymore. So I will actually find your email easily. Obviously, you can call the office. We encourage people to call the office at 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. And State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook. We have Twitter at Tacky Chan. We have tackychan.org, which is not the state website, but because of strange ethical law issues, I have to maintain a separate website, which is actually a work website, not a campaign website, that provides some useful resources. And of course, the state website is malegislature.gov. You can look at past public hearings and upcoming schedules of the legislature. Of course, QATV. Hopefully, Joe will talk about me in the podcast in the morning as part of the news in a positive manner. And yeah, and then you can find me in a number of ways. Okay, sure. And oh yeah, room 42. Come by and visit. We're open.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Techie. Happy safe Labor Day weekend.
You too. Everyone enjoy Labor weekend. I'll see you in the fall.